All right. Got a couple of you there. Say hi down in the chat for me. That way I'll know you're there. And let me know that you can hear me because, as you know, if you've seen any of my prior lives, sometimes the mic doesn't work. So say hi down below. Let me know who's here. And let me know where you're from. I usually give it a little bit, wait for a few guys to show up so that we can get started. That way, get a few of you here anyway. I always try to start a little early just to make sure that my mic is working, that everybody can hear me. So if you can hear me, drop it down below. Let me know. If you can't hear me, let me know that too. It is working. Right on. Hey, John, how are you? Loud and clear. Timothy Christian. Hey, buddy. Nice to see you on here tonight. You've been keeping me hopping in the comments. I love it, by the way. So thank you. All good, John. You're out there working hard. Still got a few minutes, so this is my BS session while we wait to see who's going to join us tonight. But don't be shy. Throw out whatever you want while we're waiting, because what else we got to do, right? I'll tell you, while we're waiting for folks to join, we just got back from Portland and made an impromptu trip to see my sister because my daughter was flying out. And after last week's flying adventure, you just never know if anybody's going to make it or not right now. So I don't know, John, if you saw that. I ended up spending, oh gosh, it was over 24 hours in an airport. What a mess. And there was a gal there. I posted a video with her. She ended up 5 days and was finally going to get a flight out. So that was insane. But yeah, so anyway, bit of a crazy weekend. I actually decided to throw this live up just because I realized it had been a while, and I've got to go up to the cabin again next weekend, or this now coming weekend, and get a few things done. And then I don't have much time before I go take a trip up to Canada to see my son way up north. And I thought, gosh, I better put a live out because I haven't done one in 2 or 3 weeks now. And it might not be till August before I get a chance to do another one, but we'll see. I might be able to slip one in right before we go to Canada, so I'll try to do that. But and I try to do a couple a month anyway, just for those that are interested and that have questions. The rock in the log pick should be in your email. Oh, right on, buddy. Good. Let me go pull my email up. I know John was asking about it, and I didn't have an answer for him. So let me see if I got a rock. Uh-oh. I just got a message. Oh, there it is, right there. Daryl LeBlanc. Here we go, Daryl. Let me take a look at this rock. It's a good thing we're still waiting for the 5:30 bell to ring. Not that I care about those kind of things. Okay, that's the first picture that we saw, which made it look really square. So let's open up the second one. Oh wow. Interesting. But you cut that thing, huh? So folks, I'm gonna put this on out on my community page here shortly. But Daryl, I don't. You cut into that though. What kind of rock is that? Holy smokes! Chicago was closed due to the smoke from Canada. Family delayed, so I feel your pain. Oh, gotcha. Okay. So Daryl just sent me this rock. So now I'm going to save these, and I'll save the original two, and then I'll put them both up. So Daryl, while I'm doing that, did you determine what kind of rock it was? I mean, could you kind of figure out what it was? I'm posting it. So if you answer me and I don't see it right away, give me a second here. I'm gonna go post it on my community page so everybody can go look. I know there was quite a few people that wanted to know what that rock was. I still want to know what the heck it was. Okay, so we have rock in ash. Let's see here. We want date then. I want date. I'm going to have to go figure out what the other name was. I thought it was rock in ash. Oh, it is. Okay, rock in ash tree. There they are, both of them. Okay, they're going up right now. Almost. I had to fix my spelling errors. I can type really fast as long as I don't spell correctly. All right, here we go. I think it's going up right now. Yep. Oh, wait. Let's see. Did I get them both? Come on. There it is. Okay. All right, here we go. Slate. Wood Miser double hards, huh? It's okay. So if you haven't, here, I'll share this link for you here. Let me see if I can. Well, I'll just. Is there a way? I don't think I can share the link. So what I'll do is my community page. I'll just share that link in here in case you're not sure where to go. So that is, you can go look at that rock. I didn't zoom in really close, Daryl. So here's a question for you. Tell us, how far into the rock did you cut? It looks like 2 or 3 inches or more. And it looks like you flattened it and broke some of it off. So is that about right? Daryl doesn't type as fast as I do. 2 or 3 inches. Wow, that's insane. So that's Wood Miser double hards. You know, let's see, what time is it? It's close enough. I got a few of you. That's good enough for me today. We'll see who joins us as we go. I have to tell you though, I see all the time on Facebook guys posting in the Sawyer groups, oh, Wood Miser bands, they break. I've been using Wood Miser bands since early 2000, since February of 2011. So that is 12 years that I've been using Wood Miser bands. I don't break that many. I've only, right now, off the top of my head, I can think of 1 or 2. I don't break them that much. Now, I'll be honest, I use Wood Miser Resharp. So my bands get inspected before they get cleaned, they get inspected, then they get sharpened and set. So is that why? Maybe. But I think a lot of times guys push their bands way more than they should. And I think it's not really their fault. And by that, I mean, Wood Miser never told me 12 years ago to only try to run your band about 2 hours. I talked to guys online to see what they were doing, and I'd have guys tell me, well, I can get 1,000 board feet out of a band. And how's my back rehab going? Not well. But so some guy would say he's getting 1,000 board feet out of a band, and I'd be getting 500, and I'm thinking, how the hell are you getting 1,000 board feet out of a band? But then after a while, you spend a lot of time milling and talking to guys and everything else, you find out, well, yeah, they were running 1 3/4 bands, or 1.5 inch, or they're running thicker bands, or they're running a 42 horse diesel, and they're milling, 700-800 board feet an hour. Totally different environments. And what Wood Miser told me later in my Q&A that I did with them, and they told it to me twice in the same day, was 2 hours. Keep the band tension high at 2,800 to 3,000 pounds, and keep your drive belt tension correct. Don't let your drive belt start dipping in tension. I think on mine, the book says, and I said at one point I was going to go look it up, and every time I've looked, it says 14 pounds. But Kevin actually told me that his book says 14 to 17 pounds, and he runs 17 pounds, and he's got over 2,000 hours on his mill. So, no, but I'm thinking that because I always kept my band tension up, never let it dip, because I always kept my drive belt tension up, because I only run about 2 hours a band, maybe that's why I don't break bands. But here you have Daryl cutting 2 or 3 inches into a slate rock with a double hard band. The band didn't break. He dulled the hell out of it. Unless tell me I'm wrong. Maybe you did break the band, but it looked to me like the band just got totally hosed, but didn't break. And I've seen bands break plenty of times, but a lot of times it's guys that resharp their own and they're using them over and over and over and over again until they're just plumb worn out. So, but okay. So first question, B. Willen. I don't remember your first name. So Ben or Bill. I try to remember when folks comment. By the way, so if I don't get it right, I apologize. But my back rehab. So I got told recently by somebody that spent 30 years in orthopedics that it ain't getting better for me. But I do think I did a test last week where they go in, and I'm going to get the picture from my next meeting with the doc. I swear to God, I'm going to get it. I'll put it up on my community page because I look like a pin cushion with 8 needles stuck in my spine. But so I'm working towards an ablation to burn out the nerves that are causing a certain amount of the pain. So I had that done on Thursday, and the objective afterwards is to go out and do things that cause you pain and to see what happens. So I actually went out and mowed the lawn and weed eated and did all that kind of stuff, and it felt really great. I still had a lot of pain, but not the same pain because I have multiple problems. But it did great. Felt fantastic. Even Friday morning, I felt really great. By Friday evening, it was not good. And we drove to Portland. And anytime I get up out of a chair, it's tough to walk for a few minutes, and you kind of have to get up, or a few seconds anyway. And you have to get up and kind of move around and get the blood flowing and get going again. So the truth of the matter is, I think my production milling days may be slowing down a little bit. I had a job that a repeat customer nearby here that wanted me to come out and do a weekend job. And I pushed that one out, hoping that I can get the mill fixed and get myself going again so I can go do the job. And I ended up calling Kevin and saying, hey, this guy's, he's a hard charger. He's got a lot of logs. I can't do the job. And I think I'm going to simply not do any production milling jobs for the rest of this summer, at least. And then in the fall, we'll see how it goes. But I will be milling. I'll just do it at my cabin for myself, which I need to do. I desperately need to go do my own milling, but I can do it at my own pace, and I think that'll help. So, but with the ablation test went well, obviously, because I went and did things that I wasn't able to do before. And trust me, I went and wired up a switch in the shop, and I almost went and got the rest of the things I needed to do the work on the mill that I need to do, and I just got caught up doing some other things because I haven't had time or the ability to do a bunch of things. And as a result, of course, when you do finally feel like you can walk enough to go do stuff, then you just don't have enough time to do all the things you need to do. So the mill's still sitting in the driveway waiting for me to get back to it. Thank God I've got Kevin out there milling for me, and I got video I can bring to you of Kevin milling, and there's more to come. In fact, I'm going to be releasing very, very shortly a 32-ish minute video. You will hopefully have seen already 2 sides of that video, but I'm combining last week's video and this week's video to complete the video. So this week's was really the end of the last one, but it was so long and it takes so long to get it together. I decided to just release what I had last week, which looked like the log got finished, but it really wasn't. And so this week's we finished the log off, and I'm going to combine those. And I actually was going to release that on this weekend, actually, to members, and then have it go live on Tuesday for everybody. However, the song that's on that video, and if you haven't watched it, go check it out after this. But if you have, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think of it in the chat. But I thought it was a really good country song. And maybe it's not perfect for sawmilling videos, but I thought it was a fun song. Women Made Me This Way. It's a great song. So anyway, I had that song in there and I really liked it. And when I combined the video together to give you the full log, start to finish, the whole 32 minutes of it or whatever it was, I couldn't use the song because YouTube then wanted $10 for the license of the song. So I was able to get it for free for the lifetime of the last video. But if I want to use it again, I got to pay $10. And I said, I'm not going to do that. So I have to take out some of the voiceover, redo it, and put some different music in that spot. YouTube woes, right? But and then I'll release that. So that one, and that's going to be a side release. I'll have that out by Tuesday anyway for everybody to watch. For those that want to see the whole video, and it'll be out there for anybody else forever. So, but I'll still get one for Friday, and that will be some spalted maple, which I don't know yet how that one's going to go. If I can get it all in one video, or if I've got to do it in two. But oh my God, that stuff was gorgeous. So I think you're going to enjoy that one. So those are coming. So yeah, the back's messed up, but we're going to get out there and get some milling done anyway. Just going to be a little slower. So, all right, what else do we got here? Daryl, I've broken just a few, but I really think I run them too long. Yeah, if you run them more than 2 hours, Woodmiser says you are. Let's see, John, I break most of my blades after I've sharpened them 11 times on average. At 1.25 bands, probably 0.45s, right? So yeah, well, yeah, because you're running a LT35. Yeah, so if you're getting 11 sharpenings out of them, I don't think you can ask more than that. Would I be correct in saying that now that you've paid off your mill, that there's not as much drive to go out and mill for money? No, actually, I wouldn't say that. In fact, in some ways, maybe there's more. One, I really enjoy it, and I love going out and milling for people in these remote locations. I love to camp. I grew up wanting to camp as a kid. Always. I went camping the first time by myself before I turned 12 years old in Ocean Falls, British Columbia, which is about 360 miles north of Vancouver, BC, on the coast. No roads in, no roads out. Bear, cougar, and wolf country. My mom was freaking out, and my dad said, you know what? The natives, they go out at 12 years old to prove that they're a man, and they go out in the woods by themselves. And if they make it home, they prove they're a man. So he let me go, and I went camping on my own. I love to go out camping. So what I do with the mill, come on, folks, I'm just camping, right? I get to take my mill and camper. Now, of course, it's not camping like I used to do, but it's still camping, right? It's just that I can take a shower and have a quick meal, and I've got some ice in the freezer from my bourbon 30. And I go out to these locations and I mill all day, which I love doing. And then everybody leaves and it's just me or my wife and I can have a shower, clean up, have some dinner, and then just kick back in the middle of the woods somewhere where there isn't anybody else around and just enjoy the evening. And it's just like this awesome thing to do. So and get paid doing it. And I love that. And I'm very competitive with myself. So for me, the back is really a problem because I don't really want to quit production sawing because I love doing it. I'm very competitive with myself. And so if I mill 3,000 board feet, in a weekend, then I feel like next weekend I should try to do 3,500, right? If I can get 4,000 in a weekend, then no weekend's good enough until I beat 4,000. That's just the way I am. So I'm always trying to improve the way I do things and get better at it. And so if I make, $20,000 in a year milling part-time, well, then I want to go make 22 the next year, and maybe I'm just sick that way. But also because that was my retirement plan, right? I wanted to be able to retire a little young because of my injuries from the Corps. And I wanted to be able to go out and do this instead and enjoy it. And I knew I wouldn't have to work full-time at it because of my VA disability. So I get paid by the VA. But I still need to earn enough money that hopefully my wife can retire too, right? So I wanted to work full-time with the mill and highly motivated to do it. But unfortunately, the challenge is, and walking isn't always the challenge, or running the mill. Like I could put a seat on the mill and I may do that. But the challenge is actually getting everything put together, picked up, put on the mill, all that kind of stuff, get everything ready. And I have to find easier ways to do that. And with this job that I took, being gone 12 and a half hours a day, Monday through Thursday, made it really tough. So if I left on a Friday to try and go milling and got home on Sunday, I wouldn't barely have enough time and energy to unload the mill and get everything put back in the shop so that I could go to work Monday, and try to do it all over again on the weekend. And that's how I paid for the mill, but I was a little younger and wasn't struggling as much with the back. So anyway, to answer your question, no, I absolutely would love to get out there and make more. And honestly, I paid for the mill in 2018. So if you think about it from that perspective, that video that if you watch that video about paying the mill off in 13 months, that I bought the mill. I brought it home in February of 2016. And in 2017, actually, is when I made the last payment. And it was March of 2017 that we made the last payment. The mill was paid off. And my most productive years were 2016, 17, and 18. In 2018, I want to say it was 2018, I dropped a 900-pound log on my foot, broke my big toe and crushed some other toes, and almost had heat stroke. And decided then to heal up a little bit and go a little bit slower. Plus, I wasn't getting the cabin work done that I wanted to do because I was out milling for other people all the time. And so I kind of slowed down. And then everybody knows what happens, what happened at the end of 19 and 20. It was kind of crazy. And I was working full time still. We didn't shut down or anything. So it was really kind of full time. And then I moved as well. And so I had kind of this slow period after my injury in 2018 through 2021 when I finally started gearing back up and milling. And the funny thing is in 2021, I wasn't advertising, but some of my earlier repeat customers kept calling me, and others were finding me through the Wood-Mizer Pro Sawyers program and the WSU Small Sawyers list. So I ended up kind of getting back to it again. And as soon as I did, and you mill, right? Sawdust in your blood. As soon as you get back to knocking out some lumber again, you just can't help but want to go out and do it again. And honestly, it's funny that you asked that. If I could do anything differently, it would be that if my YouTube channel grew big enough, I'd probably go out and mill for a lot less, maybe even choose some customers throughout the year and not charge them at all to mill, to help them out. I think that would be a lot of fun to do. Like, I've met people who could barely afford to have me come out and mill, but they really needed the lumber, and I've done it anyway. And they've been great customers. And I think about that sometimes, and I think, well, what about that couple that's trying to build that cabin and they're kind of desperate to get it done, and they've run out of some funds, and gee whiz, maybe I could go out and mill 5,000 board feet for them and not even charge them. And I would do that, I think, if the circumstances were right. They got to have, it's got to be a good enough reason. It can't be somebody that's just not bothering to work. But if they had a good enough story and they really needed the lumber, then I would go do it. I know there's some homesteaders out there that have YouTube channels that are struggling some of the time, and I thought, gosh, it'd be fun to go out there and just do that for them. So that would be probably the only difference. But again, it would only be if YouTube was working out well enough for me, which right now it's not really doing that. It's doing okay, don't get me wrong. But all right, what else you got? I get that. My LT35 HD is a hobby mill, mostly milling lumber for myself. It's not really work when it's fun. Well, yeah, that's it, right? So I used to tell people that I couldn't charge for something if I really liked what I was doing. It changed the dynamics of it. And in fact, when I was a lot younger, I was a pretty competitive dart player. In fact, I was pretty competitive into my 40s. And I know darts, right? What does that have to do with sawmilling? But one of the things when I was in my 20s, I was very, very competitive. But I couldn't play for money like in a bar setting. I started out doing that and did very well. But then eventually I got to where it seemed to mess with my head and I didn't like it. But I really loved going to tournaments where I could win money. But it was a different environment, I think, for some reason. And so I always said, if I've really enjoyed something, I'm not sure that I could do it and charge for it. But today with the sawmill, I absolutely can. I have no problem with that. In fact, I think it's a better experience. I I know that at least one of my viewers was thinking of not charging people to mill for him because he likes milling and he wants to do it for fun and he can get the experience. And I told him, I said, honestly, charging is a good thing because if nothing else, they understand that they're getting something of value. So I think you have to kind of balance that sometimes. Like if you can afford to go mill for someone and not charge them at all, is it really worth doing that? Because you're putting all of that equipment and everything else into use, and you have some risk to it. And plus, I don't know that they always appreciate what they get unless they pay for it, right? So anyway, that's my philosophy. But I would, I think I would, I mean, it depends on the back. If the back gets back to where I can at least load the mill and unload the mill and do the maintenance on the mill and do it all in a timely manner and walk beside the mill all day or ride it all day like Magic Man does, I would definitely get back to doing that because I really enjoy it. And, you can earn a decent amount of money doing it. Um, and from a retirement perspective, why not, right? Work part-time, work when you want to, and earn a decent amount of money from it. So, but all right, so channel updates. I'll do a quick channel updates for you while I'm at it. So I mentioned earlier I've got some video that of Kevin doing the maple, and then I also have my laser video that I've been working on for a very, very long time, and I've decided I need to get that finished. So I'm going to try to get that out pretty soon, and with or without the laser actually much in action, because I have lots of video of doing the install, and I think some might find that interesting. Apenix has been really great. They sent me the laser. Full disclosure, they sent it to me. They didn't put any stipulations on it other than I put a video out, but then a whole bunch of things didn't work out. Like Woodmiser didn't have the parts in order to do the install. And one thing about doing this laser on the LT40 or LT35 type mills is that it's not like you could just bolt it to the side of the mill on the outside of the log and away you go, right? You guys know that on these mills. If you were running a mill like Two Brothers Outdoors, you could do it no problem on a dual rail mill or a LX, the old LT15 or LT10s. You could do it on those no problem. But on the cantilever heads, it's a totally different environment. And the LT40 mount works really, really well. I really like it. So I went with Woodmiser's mount, but Apenix's laser setup, and then I blew it up. So that was part of the deal. And so I had to go out, and let's see, did I blow up yes, I think I blew up the laser. And so I ordered another one from them that I paid for. But instead of ordering the 12 volt to 5 volt or 3 volt or whatever converter that they have, I went on Amazon and I found two for less than a third of the price. I think theirs was, and they're adjustable. And I dialed that in, got it installed. They work fantastic, and I was really happy about that. So, so I'm going to get that video done, and then I will get the maintenance done, come hell or high water, soon. Whether you might see me walking around with a cane while I'm doing it, but I'm going to get it done because I have some logs I've got to go mill for a local guy who I've mentioned before. He's a woodworker, close friend of the family. He's got these logs sitting in his yard, and I still haven't gotten up there because of my back. So I've got to go up there and do that. And I had another customer that I didn't communicate with enough that has a log that I think still has them, wants to get them done, and I need to give them to Skookum Sawmill, who's out of Yakima. And I just got to get that arranged and see if I can't get that done. And I was hoping to do it where I could film it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to or not, just because of the time of year. So in any case, lots of content still coming. There'll be some cabin content coming as well for those into that kind of stuff. I've got the new LifePo 4 batteries up there. We've got to get up there and check on them. They didn't balance right, apparently. And so I'm running on 2 rather than 3. So I got to go up and get that sorted out, and then do some fire protection up there. This is the time of year when I've got to get up there and cut in my fire breaks and do all that kind of stuff. And then once the mill's up and running, I'm going to go up there and mill, even if it's this summer. Normally, I don't like to mill in between the middle of July through to about September, because out here in Eastern Washington, it is so hot and so dry. I find I lose a higher percentage of lumber in the drying process than I do any other time of year. So if I dry through the winter, I don't hardly lose anything. If I dry in the hottest part of the summer, I could lose 10 to 15% or so. So I kind of avoid it just because I don't like to lose anything if I'm going to mill it. But I think because I've got those logs up there, they still got bark on them. I said in my video about doing the log deck that I was going to put some Home Defense Max on them, but my back was in such rough shape that I ended up not doing it. And afterwards I thought, oh gosh, I never got that done, and we left. And so I could have bark beetles in those logs now. I don't know. We're gonna find out. So, so that's kind of basically what's going on there. Um, I do plan on doing some traveling around stuff. If you saw one of my channel posts in my community page, I started memberships. And one of the things I've decided to do is anytime I get members that are close enough for me to go out and film their operations, I'm going to make that a priority for them, because I want to do more of that. I think it was a lot of fun filming Kevin's operation because it allowed me to get a different perspective on the whole process. Instead of concentrating on production milling, I got to concentrate on putting the cameras up. And it was a little tough to walk around, and the batteries were dying on me all the time. But I managed to get, as you probably saw if you watch those videos, 5 different angles at times. So that was a lot of fun, and I want to do more than that. And there's a gentleman over in Moxie, another Marine. He's got an LT-15. I want to go film his operation. We got Michael Weller up north. I want to do his, as well as Kevin in his home turf. And then Skookum, maybe, there's some other ones around here. Plus, a customer of mine bought a mill in Pendleton. I did a bunch of black locust for them. Well, they bought an LT-40 super hydraulic, and they had it down in California for a while, but I think they're back up in Eastern Washington. And I'd like to go out and film their operation too. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So there's going to be lots coming, whether it's me milling or others milling. I don't know yet. We'll find out. And there'll be some cabin stuff in there because I got to get back to milling D logs. Well, one of the first serious videos I think I did about 2 years ago, when I finally started to thinking I wanted to build this channel up more, was about D logs. I need to get back to making D logs because I got milling for other people again. And that is one of the challenges that I'm sure you guys know. You think you want to mill for yourself. And Daryl, I'm going to tell you this right now. Keep it that way. If you want to mill for yourself and you still have lots of projects to make your own lumber, if you start going and milling for other people all the time, you don't get your own milling done, right? So I've got to get back up to the cabin, and I've got a bunch of stuff to mill. I've got lots of stuff I've got to do up there. I got to finish the back room. It's still not finished, and I need to do that so I can put the batteries in before the winter. So I've got to mill a bunch of wood for that. I got to finish that silly outhouse out there, so I got to mill a bunch for that, and I need to mill over 100 D logs. So I've got to get up there and really get working. So that's going to happen. So all that kind of stuff's going to happen. I mentioned memberships. I did bring those out. And, in case you're interested right now, it's like $2.99 a month for the base membership and $4.99 for the second step up. Those are going to be, there's going to be a lot more of this kind of thing, but more pointed towards the members. In other words, I'm still going to do lives, but I may actually do more lives for members, as well as there's going to be a bunch of other perks for members. And that's honestly just a way to support the channel. So for those interested, that's just going to be really about channel support. But there will be a lot more with some potential one-on-one time, meetups, that kind of stuff. Certainly if I get out on the road, which I do plan on doing, as I will be not working pretty soon. So I intend to try to get out on the road. There should be some member meetups here in the future too. So just kind of some of that stuff going on. All right, that's about it for the channel. What do you guys got for me? Ask away. What questions you got? I got my regular crew here pretty much. So although I don't see Desert Hobo or Two Brothers or Mike over at Wilson's. And hey, here's a question for you guys. Totally off topic, but I got one of those brains. Did you guys see Mike Wilson's, that's Wilson's Forest Lands? Did you see his bear video with the bear hitting going after the wasp nest? That was crazy. If you haven't seen it, let me know. Or if you did, let me know. I mean, that was, if you haven't seen it, he was out walking in the woods and happened to have a camera and saw this bear and ended up watching this bear dig up a wasp nest to eat the larva in the nest. And the bear's getting just attacked by these wasps and and eating away. It was crazy. Crazy video. So, all right. Well, what questions you got? What do we got for me today? What do you want to know? Channel wise, sawmilling wise, sawmill wise, YouTube wise, life wise, you name it. Bear and the cougar. So the cougar one, I watched the bear one, and there was a prior one he mentioned the cougar, and I didn't get a chance to watch the next cougar one. So I haven't seen that one. So I don't know if he's actually filmed the cat or not. But I have a cougar story I can tell you while I'm waiting on questions. So if you don't want to hear my cougar story, you got to ask questions to get me to stop. But so back in 2013, when I took the management job with the phone company up north, we had property up there, 20 acres. That's where our cabin is. You've probably seen it if you've watched those videos. And they paid me to move there. And so for about a year, I lived at that cabin alone and commuted the 45 miles between the cabin and my office in Omak. And in the winter, it was pretty tough. That winter, it got to 22 below zero. That's 22 below zero Fahrenheit. And, so there was a lot of work keeping the cabin warm, keeping things from freezing. Eventually, my water lines froze. I got those thawed out, but my gray water drain froze. So I had no gray water drain. And I had to pull the P-traps out and put a 5-gallon bucket under the sink. And of course, I couldn't use the shower. So I got a gym membership just so I could get a shower, every couple of days. And, I'd go into work and then get the guys out, and then I'd go work out and then have a shower. And that was living in the woods. But one Sunday I was just kind of trying to get enough water pumped up into the cistern. And I have a 190 watt 24 volt solar panel that feeds a charge controller that runs the pump that's about 85 feet down in the well. And so, there's no tracking on that. So every 45 minutes, you turn the panel into the sun again, maybe a little bit leading, so that, as the sun goes, 45 minutes later, you go back out, you turn the panel again. So I had turned everything on. And when I walked out to the pump, it's about 70 yards, 75 yards from the cabin. And so I walked out to the pump, turned the panel, and as I was walking back, I saw these tracks in the snow. And it was about maybe a foot and a half of snow. And I saw these tracks in the snow, and I thought, oh, there's an animal out here. Didn't think much about it, though. And went back inside, read for about 45 minutes, then got up, put my boots on, walked back out to the solar panel. I noticed that there was another set of tracks beside my tracks now on the other side of my tracks going out to the solar panel. So I went out, I turned the solar panel, I got looking at the tracks, and I thought, gosh, that looks like a cougar. Well, I thought, okay, yeah, it must have been a cat, must have been curious. So I walked back to the cabin, and on my way back to the cabin, I noticed that the tracks went over to my tractor that I'd gone to earlier. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Like, he's following me around. So I went to the tractor. Sure enough, he was there. And I kind of looked around, and I noticed that there was 1 or 2 loops of this cat had gone out into the woods and then come back. I guess, he must have taken off when I came out or went in, one or the other, and then came back later. So I went back in the cabin and started reading again. And 45 minutes later, went out and changed the panel. And again, more tracks. And this went on for several hours throughout the day. It was a Sunday. And at one point, I got up to go, turn the solar panel again. Now, bear in mind, I am at least half a mile to a mile from my nearest neighbor, right? There's nobody there. It's just me in the middle of the woods all by myself. So I carry a sidearm always. And you've probably seen it in some of my cabin or some of my early milling videos. If you've gone back and seen any of the 2016 LT40 sawmill videos, I put them in a playlist called The Early Years, and they're terrible videos. So if you've watched them, thank you, and bless your heart for doing it, because I'm sure it was painful. And if you haven't watched them, well, now you might want to go back and see just how bad my videos were a dozen years ago, right? I guess it wasn't a dozen. That was what's that, 7 or 8 years ago. But anyway, you may have seen that I always have a pistol on my hip. Well, I'm in the middle of nowhere. totally in the middle of nowhere. I've had feral dogs out there, all kinds of things. You just don't know what you're going to run into out there, and come across bears, cougars, you name it. So anyway, I get up and put my boots on. I'm going to go back out to turn the solar panel one last time, and I go out onto the deck, and there's cougar prints in the snow on the deck, right up to the 4-foot window that looks into my cabin. And I actually think that cat walked right up to that window and looked in the window while I was sitting there reading in front of the wood stove, and I never bothered to look up. I didn't see him. But there were tracks all around the cabin. Everywhere I went, the cat went. And he was doing it the entire day. So it wasn't like he just came in, went, oh yeah, there's a human, and left. No, he was following me around the cabin all day long. It was crazy. And ended up calling a neighbor of mine because I needed to shut off all my water, and it's you can't see very well, and it gets dark out there, right? You're in the middle of the woods. It is super dark out there. And so I called up my neighbor, who was, they're probably about a mile away, and I just said, hey, you guys mind coming out and holding a flashlight for me so I can get my water shut off and do all that kind of stuff? It's something I usually would do. And they said, yeah, sure, we'll be right up. So they jumped in their ute and they headed up there. And when they got to the cabin, they were just laughing. And they said, Eric, as soon as we hit your driveway, we saw those tracks. And they just came right in down the driveway, right down your driveway, right to your cabin. That cat just came in here like he was driving a car right to your cabin just to check you out, see what was going on. But I never actually saw the cat. So my thought was he was either going under the cabin, which is possible because there's no skirting around it. One day I'll get that done, but there was no skirting around it. He could have been going under the cabin and hiding under there when I came out, or he was sitting in a tree, 50 feet away, watching me walk around, and then would come out and sniff me out or something like that. So those are the kind of things that you can run into when you're in the middle of nowhere. Fortunately, I didn't, run into him at all. But my thought was it wasn't a big cat. The prints weren't that big. I've seen cat tracks out there as big as my hands, and I'm told I've got big hands. And I've seen some really big cat tracks out there. And we can have cats out here that are way beyond what they'll tell you, right? If you look up mountain lion, a lot of times they'll say a mountain lion male can be 150 to 170 pounds. Well, there are cats out here that are well over 200 pounds. And in fact, a friend of mine shot one that was 230 pounds. And so we can get some big mountain lions out here. But this one wasn't that big. I think its tracks were, maybe 3 inches across, something like that. Not quite, not like maybe the size of the palm of my hand rather than the whole hand spread out. But I've seen cat tracks out there that were big, 4 inches across, something like that. So anyway, there's my cougar story for you. I still don't have any questions, so I guess you didn't want me to shut up. All right, so what questions you got now? Don't make me tell you my wolf stories and my other bear stories. I have lots of them. While I'm waiting for a question, I'll tell you this. So I grew up in the in the forest country. I grew up in British Columbia, born in Oregon, but raised in British Columbia. And we moved to BC 67 to a homestead in Vanderhoof, British Columbia, quarter section of land. And that was our begin. And Vanderhoof is, like 800 miles north of here, right dead center of British Columbia. And it can easily get 40, 50 below in the wintertime. And we lived in an uninsulated cabin, right? Tough life. But so I grew up all over British Columbia in places that like Ocean Falls, where you really in the middle of nowhere as soon as you leave town, right? 5 minutes out of town and you're on your own. And so, you learn to live around wildlife because that's where you live. How many sets of tires have you used on the mill? Oh, see, somebody's tired of my stories already. John, I am on my second set of tires. I have a spare, and then I blew one tire that blew the fender, ripped the fender to shreds. I got a flat. Let's see. I got a flat on my very first job with the mill. So that would have been March of 2016. I bought the mill in February and maybe April. Might have been April of 2016. I got a flat, replaced that tire. Then the tire that I replaced it with, they didn't have the right size, so I had to buy another tire and made that one my spare. Excuse me. And then blew the one a couple years ago, or a year ago, year and a half ago. I guess it was a year and a half ago. I blew that one and replaced the tires. So I would say I'm on my second set of tires, maybe my second spare. But I've done thousands of miles. I remember seeing on one truck over 5,000 miles, and then I replaced that truck 4 years ago. I'm guessing I probably have at least 20,000 miles on my mill, and that's nothing compared to some guys. I've talked to guys that have over 100,000 miles on their sawmills. So now I overload mine more than just about anybody else. I really push that mill by some of the places I drag it into. I've dragged it into some serious off-road locations. In my videos, doesn't look like it, right? The one thing about videos is that you never really get a feel for what the road is like, because the video smooths everything out. Like those GoPros, they have they have oh, what do you call it? It's image stabilization. So like if your camera is going like this down the road, the video is smooth. You wouldn't even know it. And on some of the inclines and declines you're going up and down, it looks pretty flat. You don't really look like you're going through tough terrain. In fact, on the Jeep side, I occasionally do some Jeep videos on my Jeep channel, the Old Jarhead's Jeep, and you can't tell how rough the terrain is in the video. And that's one of the things that is interesting with the sawmill, because I did a video where I tried to show how the camper literally rocked over hard to one side. And I think the video did a pretty good job of kind of showing you how it went. If I'd have had more cameras set up, and if I knew that was going to happen, because I didn't, it would have been really spectacular maybe. But I actually wouldn't even stop the truck in that location on my way in, because I was afraid of the angle that I was on, and I could flop the whole truck on its side. And in the video, you can't see that. You don't realize that it's that crazy. And so I've dragged my mill in places that, you need four-wheel drive to get into them, and you can't really tell in the videos. And so it probably has 20,000 miles on it, 2 sets of tires plus spares, but it's rough miles. So what else you got for me? How many sets of tires? Any other questions about pulling the mill, about life in the woods, about YouTube? Ask away, because you got me for however long you want me. So till 6:30 or so, or whatever. And I'll answer any questions. So anybody on here, and I see I got 7 of you out there, and I see 3 of you talking. So the other 4, where are you from? What kind of mill you got? And if you don't have questions, that's cool. Just say hi. Let me know you're there. I see there's 7 of you out there, but don't see who's there or what questions you might have. So toss them out there. And you do have John from Davidson's All Natural Gym on. He's got a YouTube channel. He runs an LT35. And you've got Daryl over at Caper Country, who also runs an LT35. And usually on my lives, it's all people that run sawmills anyway. So you're in good company here if you got questions and need to know something, or want to know something, or curious about something, like, what the heck is this? But and okay, I'll ask you guys a question. How many of you saw this week's video, and what did you think of the song? And maybe you're not into country, so you didn't like it. That's okay. And how many of you saw the 2 prior videos, or any of the Kevin videos? And what I'm curious about is, what do you thought of the videos themselves? Not necessarily my voiceovers or the music, but the video shots. How many shots? Did it give you a better feel of the operation, having the constant movement and 5 different camera angles? I'm curious how that worked out for you. And my goal is always to try to bring the best possible video I can to you. I can. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the best out there. I'm not. I'm just a hack. But if I got 5 camera angles, and I did just buy another camera, by the way, then I'm hoping that gives a really a good feel for some of it, like when the boards are coming slamming off the mill, and sawdust is flying everywhere. So anyway, how many saw 'em? Put it down there below. Let me know. So John's the first one who's brave brave enough to tell me. Yeah, so you liked it. Good. I'm glad. I appreciate the comment. So I mean, and that's what I try to do, right? I mean, John, you and I have talked about this before. That's kind of my shtick, right? Is to try and get every possible camera angle I have. And so now I'm going to have 4 GoPros plus my wife's camera. So I'm hoping, and I'm not going to do more than that, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to give more angles, more views of all the different aspects of milling as it goes. And I plan on doing more videos on stuff like doing D-logs and, maybe milling siding or whatever. So if you have questions about, or if you have ideas like, hey, I'd like to see this, don't be afraid to drop it down below and I'll put a note and do that. So East Coast, New Brunswick. Wow, way out there. Homemade 158 inch and a half wide. Awesome. Now, Fisherman 506. So 1, do you have a channel? And 2, New Brunswick. So Caper Country, you're in Nova Scotia? I think you're in Nova Scotia, Daryl. Tell me I'm wrong. Let me see if he does, Lee. What's my favorite camera? That's hard to say. If it depends on the use. So right now, I ordered a GoPro 11. I could have ordered a 9 or a 10. I ordered the 11 because everything I've seen on the 11 is it's better than the 9 and the 10. But if I'm going to put a camera downstream of the mill, facing the sawmill blade, it's going to be the 9. 1, they're less expensive. 2, it does perfectly fine. It does. If I was going to get if somebody came to me today and said, hey, you dumb jarhead, what camera would you buy today to start doing your own filming? I would say, well, any. I started on this piece of crap Vivitar that cost like $80, and I don't even count this in my cameras that I have. But the GoPro 9 is a great camera. So is the 10. I really like the media mod. And so I actually ordered a media mod for the 11. So I would say either a 10 or an 11, but I think if you can afford it, they were on sale. I think members were $299 is what I paid for the GoPro 11, which is a pretty good deal. And I got it with a media mod, and the media mods are the best. They give excellent sound, cut out a lot of the wind, and they allow you to plug them into a juice box for that extended battery life. So 10 or 11 with the media mod, in my mind, is the best. But I think the 11, you can pull the battery out of the media mod and run it without a battery as long as it's plugged into a battery. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, those cameras get hot, and when they get hot, they shut down. And so during the filming for Kevin's videos, what you don't see, and I mentioned it in my last one, is that it was getting hot. It was the hottest day of the year so far. It was probably 94 degrees when we left from milling the sycamore. So it was above 90 that whole time, even in the shade. And so my GoPro 10 kept shutting down on me, and my juice box wouldn't even work. So I've got a juice box that normally I can run that GoPro 10 with the media mod for like 8 hours. The juice box would not even work. And that is one of the drawbacks with the GoPros. I've heard it happens with all of these kinds of cameras, that they don't like the heat. They don't like it. So would white be better? Maybe, but I've heard that, and I want to say, John, you might have been the one that told me this. In fact, I think it was John from Davidson's All Natural Gym, or it was Steve over at Making Sawdust, that they were trying to do a software update to the 10s, I think, so that you can pull the battery out and run them without the battery. So they'll run cooler, because without the battery in there, the battery gets really hot. So if you take the battery out, the camera doesn't get as hot. It could run longer. So I'm hoping with the 11, I can do that. So Fisherman 506, yes, he has a channel. Right on. And I'm guessing that's the channel name. So if not, you can put your channel in the comments down below. I'm okay with that. And we'll check it out. Absolutely check it out for you. But yeah, Nova Scotia, there you go. I thought so. So Caper Country and Fisherman, you guys are just right out there. You know, you ever watch? The Mystery of Oak Island? I want to go there with my sawmill one day and mill some bloody oak for him. Do you think that'd be fun? You run your GoPro 10 with no battery. Okay, so see, they did do the update. So you were the one that told me that, and I have not tried that yet. I need to do that because, and that's why I got the media mod for the 11 was because I thought the only way to go when it gets hot out is to run without the battery, so that the dang thing just doesn't die on you. So, but right on. So, Caper Country and Fisherman 506 Lee. So Daryl and Lee. You know, if I ever made it out to New Hampshire, so I think it's New Hampshire, right, where the Oak Island is. I want to go out there and see Oak Island. It's been something I was interested in as a kid. And Jarhead, you fix your mill yet? Steven, no, I did not. You want to come help out with it? I have not. I mentioned that earlier on to the guys. My back has prevented me from doing it. And oh, you're 30 miles from Nova Scotia, so you guys are neighbors. So Steven, yes. Well, where are you located? Are you close enough? I might take you up on that offer. Kevin actually offered to do it once for me last year. So this is not a new problem, guys. Last year, I'm going to say in June, when I had the band wheel bearing go out on the idle side, Kevin offered to come down and replace it for me because I could barely walk. And but I ended up getting past that and took a break and got back to it and got the band wheel done and went and did all the milling that you guys saw last year, if you saw my videos. So, California, Steven, you're the one I talked to that you were going to order an LT40 Super or an LT50. You called me, right? That's who I'm talking to right now. I'll bet you that's who it is. I'd love to have you come up and fix the mill for me, but that's a little bit far. I can't ask you to come all the way from Northern California. Though I think you said you were a trucker, so you might be cruising through here anyway, right? Still waiting on your LT40 wide, yes. And by the way, wide, absolutely the way to go. I wasn't really sure until Kevin came out with his and beat the crap out of it. Guys, I don't know if you could tell this in these latest videos of Kevin running that LT40 wide. He hammers that mill. I mean, this is a guy that works full-time running his sawmill to earn a living. And you can tell the difference if you watch between his style of milling and mine. We do things very, very similar. We mill almost the same way. He's got a wide, and he mills more than I do, and you can see that difference. So, and don't be shy. If you saw it, you drop it down below. I'm not shy. I'll tell you right now, Kevin leaped ahead of me 2 years ago, leaps and bounds. We were milling at about the same pace. And then he took off and went full time. And I mentioned it in a couple of those videos. I think that he did 1,600 hours in 2 years, 800 hours. That's crazy. And boy, you could see it, right? When he pulls that chainsaw out. And the funny thing is I saw more of it when I was editing than I did when I was there watching him run the mill and keeping the batteries running, right? When I did the editing and I'm watching it and he brought that chainsaw out and started bucking off the horns while he was milling at the same time, I thought, yeah, there you go. That's a guy that is rocking and rolling, and he's really getting it done. And now, any guesses on how many board feet an hour he runs on average? I will tell you, I run about 300 on average myself. And I know the LT40 is rated. I had the poll questions. If you guys saw those, what the board footage rate that the LT40 is rated at, it's 550 board feet an hour. I've never done that. I've done 500. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. I did do it, but not for an entire 8-hour day. So I did a video last year, 560 board feet an hour, and I did that. But I've never sustained it over an 8-hour period. I have sustained 500 board feet an hour over an 8-hour period, more than once. But that takes a heck of a crew, big logs, you name it. Everything's got to be ticking right along perfect. So I run about 300 board feet an hour on average. So anybody, yeah. Oak Island's in Nova Scotia. That's right. Okay. Still considering the Super or the 50, to be honest. I watch your mill and I think to myself, that's probably fast enough. Yeah. I mean, the 50 is capable of I think about 700. But if you're going to do what I do, and this is one thing that I think, if you're going to get a 50, you're probably going to want to be stationary more than not. It's not that the 50 is not a portable mill, it is. But most of the guys I know that run 50s and 70s don't move their mills very often. Um, Command control would be great. I would personally do that now because of my back for sure. But for what I do, it's not the mill that slows you down. The mill, the LT40 standards capable of 550 board feet an hour. That's a lot. That's fantastic. I only mill about 300. And that means that sometimes I'm milling at 250 and sometimes I'm milling at 350. It's just the way it is. But it's not the mill that slows you down. It's the logs and the help that slow you down and the environment that slows you down. So you can have a mill that can do 10,000 board feet an hour, but you still ain't going to get better than 300. That's just reality. And because unless you've got a crew and heavy equipment and everything else, moving 500 board feet an hour of logs and lumber to and from the mill is a lot of work. And I I should put a picture up for you guys of I milled 40,000 board feet for a customer of mine in 20 I think 17. And that's the guy that I was milling the 500 board feet an hour for. He had a big front end loader. Every log that he had was 24 inches in diameter at one end or the other, or bigger than that. They were 18 and a half feet long. And he had a forklift on the other side of the mill. So we would park the forklift on the off bearing side of the mill. He had the big front end loader on the other side of the mill. He had 150 logs. And he had a crew of usually either 4 to 6 guys so that they could spare off and be two at a time off bearing. And they got so good at it that they knew that if I was going to run to the deck or close to it, that they would stay out of my way. And as soon as the band shut down, because I don't shut my band down when I'm just running to the deck, right? When I start going, I don't shut the band down. Kevin, if you notice in his videos, does. He's very fast at it. He says it's more efficient. He burns less fuel doing that. I don't seem to notice a difference, but I run mine all the time. So anyway, they would, as soon as I shut the band down, they were hauling lumber out of there like crazy. So by the time I got reset and ready to go, they were out of my way and away I went. And I never slowed down. And when I did band changes, they cleaned the mill, they cleaned the head, they got everything ready. They changed my water. They would dump fuel in the mill. The only thing they didn't do was pull the old band off and put the new band on. I did that myself, and band changes were under 10 minutes. I think we got one done in 5 minutes one day. And it was unbelievable. And we were rocking and rolling. And I literally changed a log one day. So I think I milled 7 hours straight and milled and was milling at 500 board feet an hour and replaced. And actually we did it was more than 3,500 board feet. It was like 38 something. And I replaced the band every single log. That's the only time I've ever done it like that. Usually if I get 300 board feet an hour, I'm happy. We're doing fantastic. If I go over 300 board feet an hour, I'm happier as you can be. Because it's the customer and the logs in remote environments that dictate how fast you're going to go. It's just reality. So I would guess Kevin is getting 425 per hour. He can move. Well, since you're the only one that's going to guess, I'll give you the prize. It's actually 400 is what he said he does. He averages 400 board feet an hour. And yes, he can really move. He's humping right along. So Stephen, when you're thinking about a mill, and I'm not trying to talk you out of an LT50, don't get me wrong. I mean, that's a fantastic mill. Sure. I'd love one. But if you want to be realistic about where you're best putting your money, I can tell you right now that here's a guy who, now Kevin is getting an LT50. But he's probably going to start going more stationary too, just like Michael Weller is. Michael Weller's another sawyer I know that was pretty mobile, and now he's totally stationary. And if you're stationary, one of those mills is the cat's meow, right? But if you're mobile, if your plan is to be like me and to go mobile all the time, you're just not gonna mill as much lumber. I personally think, anyway, not gonna mill as much lumber as the mills can produce. I don't mill as much lumber as my LT40 can produce most of the time. Now, is there a difference in hydraulics? Well, the super, yes. But I think the LT40 super hydraulic isn't any really too different than the LT50 is. They're both super highs at that point. The difference is the LT50 has vertical side supports, and I guess it has two swing up side supports, versus the LT40 super hydraulic has the swing up side supports. You can run all four at once like Kevin does. You can use magic hooks with those. And some argue that there's ways to do it with the vertical ones. I don't know. I personally would rather have my swing up side supports because I can drag logs down the mill head with that. So speaking of dragging logs, Kevin has down using that magic hook to drag logs to the mill. Do you guys see that? He was telling me he's done it for over 30 feet on a big oak log. But I have to tell you, he had it down. He was throwing wedges in and pulling that, and I didn't help him at all. I couldn't. I mean, I knew I ran the hydraulics for him a couple times, but otherwise I had to stay out of the way. And man, if you don't have a magic hook and you're mobile, you need one. So let's see. Lundberg County on the south shore of Nova Scotia. I've really got to get there, and I'd love to get out there one day, but I don't think I will. One, I hate flying. I've flown all over the world. And this last trip when we were in Denver was a nightmare coming back. That was unbelievable. But we'll probably fly. I'll tell you, I don't know if I was going to try to do a live in the airport, and I sort of did, but it was too late, and I ended up stopping it. But Delta told us they were going to give us each $500 if we made the change. So the idea was we were 2 hours early, actually 2.5 hours early, and they said, hey, if we give you a lift up to Denver, we can get you home earlier on a straight through flight, Denver to Pasco, no stops, and we'll give you each $500. And we went, heck, why not? Right? $500. Who's gonna, why not? And the guy told my wife, he said, and you can use those for anything. You can get a Visa gift card, you can get an Amazon gift card, you just get a gift card with them and it's fine. So we were like, heck yeah, we'll do that. So they messed up getting our lift to Denver, but we finally got to Denver about 2 hours early. Then Delta did not pay for the flights on the United flight that we were supposed to catch in Denver. So we got through the line on the United side and they said, yeah, we don't have tickets. We reserved your tickets, but they didn't pay for them. So then we had to go get in the Denver or the Delta line. And my wife ended up standing in line for an hour and a half on the phone, bless her heart, because I couldn't stand that long. And my mother-in-law was with us also. She's almost 80. And so my wife gets through the line, finally gets tickets, and we get all our tickets, get the wheelchair for the mother-in-law, head to the security gate, and they closed down security because the trains weren't running in Denver. So you couldn't get from security to the gates. And they told us, well, don't worry, they'll hold the flights. So we finally, they opened the gates up like half an hour later. We get through security. We go all the way out to the B68, which is, if you've ever flown out of Denver, you don't get to go much further than that, than B68, right? That's like almost the end of the world at Denver International Airport. We get all the way out there and they're like, yeah, no, the plane left like 5 or 10 minutes ago. They wouldn't stay. Great. No flight. So anyway, we got another flight, 7:20, fly to Seattle and Seattle to Pasco. It's going to suck because we're going to get in at midnight, but don't worry, we'll get you on the plane. Then they delayed that flight over and over and over and over and over again because they didn't have a crew. They put us on the plane. We got all the way out on the tarmac, all the way out to the flight line, and then the pilots ran out of time, had to turn around and take the plane right back to the terminal, get off the plane, and then they canceled the flight. Wasn't until like 1 o'clock in the morning before we finally got another flight the next day. And at that point, I'd called around to some hotels. I said, well, we're going to get a room. We'll go get some sleep. So I got this reservation for a room, get to the hotel, and the hotel says, yeah, we don't have a reservation for the room. So we call around, find out the guy made a reservation at the wrong hotel, another 20 miles down the road. So we said, to heck with them, went back to the airport. And hung out in the airport another 8 hours, doing nothing but sitting around and reading and trying to snooze a little bit until we finally got home. And then to top all of that off, they gave us another $300 each. But we found out that those are only good to use for gift cards to buy tickets to fly on Delta somewhere else. I'm like, wait, what? We wouldn't have agreed to that. I would have taken my regular flight. Insanity. Okay. All right. Let's see. Steven. Mostly mobile, and I make a magic hook like yours after watching one of your videos. Right on. And I just did 2 mobile jobs with my LT15. Awesome. So, and the LT15, by the way, Woodmiser actually did 900 board feet in an hour on an LT15. Of course, I think they had the biggest motor you could put on the LT15 when they did it, but that mill is quite capable of milling a lot, but it takes some backbreaking work to do, right? I started on the LT10, so I know. And it's a very capable mill on mobile jobs, but just like when I was doing mobile jobs with my LT10, and yes, I said mobile with the LT10. If you haven't seen those videos, you'll have to go check them out, but we built that LT10 into something else. But it's tough, right? I mean, if you got some young guys to roll logs up ramps and get them on the deck, you can mill pretty good. I mean, I was milling. I think we usually ran about 150 board feet an hour on the LT10, but your LT15 will definitely do it. But you get that super hydraulic and or whatever the 50 whatever, it's going to save your back. And guys like John at Davidson's All Natural Gym and Daryl over at Caper Country, and Northwest Sawyer. So Jason over at Northwest Sawyer. I'm terrible with names, Jason. So if it's not Jason, it's Jason. Come on, I'm bad that way, guys. But anyway, he runs an LT35, and a lot of guys do. The LT35 is quite capable too. In fact, it's rated at 500 board feet an hour. But the LT40 is a much heavier built mill, and it's definitely better for it. So if someone would ask me what to do, I would say money, no object, LT50 with all the whistles and knobs, or an LT70. If money's an object, LT40 super with the biggest motor I could afford to put on it. Magic hook and winch on my Jeep work well for getting logs on the deck. Yeah, I bet that would actually work really well. I hadn't thought of that, but using a Jeep, what kind of Jeep? But yes, the frame on the 35 is very weak. Yeah, it's not built like the 40. The 40 is a heavier mill, no doubt about it. But yeah, so if you got a Jeep, then what did you think of me pulling logs with my Jeep? And I have a funny story to tell you about that. So I used to log with a Cherokee, right? I used to use a 1998 Jeep Cherokee, the classic Cherokee, right? XJ, with a 3-inch old man emu lift with about another half inch in there. I think it had like 31s on it and a worn 9,000-pound winch. That Jeep was really set up well. And YJ. Oh, wow. I love the YJs, by the way. I don't know why. There's something about YJs. I really love the square headlights. I like the round headlights on Jeeps. Don't get me wrong, but there's something about when you see a YJ coming down the road, you're looking at a YJ. But anyway, so I had that XJ, and I used that to mill logs all the time, and it worked great. Well, so here we are out doing these sycamores, and those are big, heavy, dripping wet logs, right? And so we choked them up to the Jeep, and away I go to haul them out there. And a couple times it just stopped me dead. So here I am in a Jeep Rubicon, right? Built to go do whatever I could possibly want to do in it. I never actually even thought about hitting the lockers. And I've off-roaded plenty and can kick the lockers on and off without thinking about it half the time. But for some reason, pulling logs with it doesn't even occur to me to kick the lockers on. And so what you didn't see there is I had no problem dragging the log over to the mill, but then it caught like a root or something, and it just stopped the Jeep dead, and we weren't quite as far as we needed to go. And in the video, you'll notice that the Jeep gets repositioned, and then I drag it out a different way. But a couple times you saw it spin and kick the grass and everything up out of this guy's yard. Well, that's because I wasn't thinking and didn't put the lockers on, and I could have locked up all 4. So just, crazy stuff that goes on when you're out Jeep logging is what I call it. But good times anyway. So what else? What else we got, guys? It's 6:40, so I'm happy to answer at least one or two more questions before we get going. And I still didn't. I only heard from John on the last videos, and it looks like Stephen too. But and also don't forget to go check out Daryl. That's Caper Country. Don't forget to check out the pictures I put on my YouTube community page of the rock that he cut 2 or 3 inches into with his wood miser with double hards, 2 or 3 inches into a rock. I've had rocks stop me cold, like right now, a half-inch rock in the bark of a log and just stop me cold. And that's another thing, right? So guys will say, I said earlier, a lot of guys will talk about breaking bands, and I'm like, I don't break that many bands, right? Wood miser bands are the best. Anybody that says they're not, I'm sorry, they're the best. Now, Joe Main does sell a band that they weld themselves. Those apparently are much better. Something about the welds that Joe's company does that guys like Jake Dean swear by, and Jake's milled more than anybody I've ever known or heard of. And so Wood Miser bands, they're top notch, right? But yeah, I mean, Joe Main's got some bands that are even better, apparently. I think they're silver tips or something like that, but their welds are fantastic. But you're not going to get like I don't know where else you're going to get better bands than Wood Misers and Joe Mains, right? They're just not out there. So, but the other thing I notice is guys always asking about dragging logs. Like, what do you do after you drag a log through the woods? Like, how do you clean it? And I realize I have a debarker. But if you guys watch those videos, Kevin almost never used his debarker that entire time. So I dragged those logs through the dirt from, 50 yards away, and he rolled it right up on the mill and got to milling them down. And I think guys sometimes get a little bit too worried about dirt. And yes, dirt is bad and it will dull your bands, and absolutely. But when I had an LT10 on the ground, I mean, I cut my trees down, buck them into logs, and drag them on the ground over to the mill before I had the tractor. And I would roll them up on the mill and mill them down. And when the band got dull, I just changed the band out. That's what you do. So I guess when you mill like I do, where you're milling remote all the time, your logs are always going to be dirty. Now, I do use my debarker more than most. I use it not exclusively all the time, but I do use it a lot. The time I don't use it is if I'm doing live edge stuff. I don't use the debarker because I don't want to cut a groove into the live edge if it gets through the bark. And damage the live edge. So I'll leave the debarker out of the equation and I'll mill that sucker down just the way it is. And if I got to change a band out, oh well, I get paid to change out bands. So one, changing bands doesn't bother me. Two, I make sure that I charge enough for my service that when I have to resharpen bands, I'm customers paying for it. It's just part of doing business, right? So if it's a hobby setup, I understand that's a little bit different. You could probably spend more time, hit it with a pressure washer or something. But like out at my cabin, there ain't no pressure washer going. We did use one out there for a short time, but it's not like I can do it where my logs are. They're too far from water, let alone power. So, it's not going to happen. Um, but it's not that big of a deal. Yes, it's going to dull your bands a little faster. Yes, you hit a rock, it's going to stop you dead, which is what started this whole thing. But, I've cut plenty of dirt, folks. I do try to use like a wire brush or something, clean the front of the log off. But, and you probably see me do that from time to time in my videos. But otherwise, I'm not too worried about dirt. All right. Old man emu lift on the '07 Rubicon. Oh, on your YJ. Okay. Frame up restoration. Almost everything is new with a 12K winch. Right on. Yeah, the OME lifts are absolutely some of the best out there, especially for like the XJs. And then I bet the YJ still has leaf springs in the back, maybe even up front, but I think only in the back. I don't remember. So totally different than like my JK. But right on. Very cool. So, well, folks, we're at an hour and 15 minutes. So I'll give you some more time. We can chat about something else if you want. So if you got any questions, if I've piqued any interest in anything, You want to know anything about sawmilling, remote sawmilling, cabin building? Did you guys? What do you guys? Did you guys see the video that I did? I think it was the log deck building video where I made breakfast with the freeze dried eggs. And I don't know if you saw that one, but that is, to me, that's one of the coolest things. And I'll tell you, and I'm not trying to sell you a harvest right thing, whatever. That's not it. But I do everything, right? So I don't. A lot of guys think, well, why would you do that? Well, I do it all. I don't just mill lumber, because if you make lumber, then you're like me, right? I mean, I maybe not. Maybe I'm the crazy. If you make lumber, that means you're taking logs, raw logs, and turning them into boards so that you can make something with it. So why not make other things yourself? And that's me. I like to make everything myself. I make my own soap. Believe it or not, I do it all, right? I don't just turn logs into lumber. I want to do everything. And so the harvest right thing, the reason I did that lunch breakfast anyway, and I hope you guys enjoy that. I had fun making it, but is because I always want to have that kind of stuff, freeze dried stuff from all my hiking camping days. You just always have that stuff. And now that I can make my own, I think that thing is fantastic. So anyway, any questions? I throw it out there that you can ask. I can't wait to see what's wrong with my mill. Love learning and watching. I'm a do-it-yourself guy too. Right on. Well, you will find out. I will tell you. And honestly, I think if you run a sawmill, I don't see how you're not a do-it-yourself kind of person. Honestly, I really don't see. I'm going to have to go. Thanks for all the live and your time answering questions. Family is doing fireworks. Right on. We'll go enjoy the fireworks and have a bourbon on me, an old Forester, statesman, or I'll have one on you. So, but yeah, doing it yourself is the only way to go. I mean, we started doing canning, gardening, you name it. We've done it all. I mean, I grew up in some pretty rough country where you did stuff yourself anyway. But to me, that's just the best. If you can make it yourself, that's awesome. Now, I mean, obviously, I didn't make my batteries for my solar power up there, but bought one of their large free dryers, and then they came out with a bigger one. Laugh out loud. Had I known, I would have waited. Yeah, they came out with a monster. So now, how long have you had yours, Timothy? I love ours. We have done tons of stuff with it. We've done a lot of eggs. You remember when eggs were like $9 a dozen or whatever the hell they got up to? I know back east they got really expensive. They weren't that bad out here. I think they got up around, for like the cheapest eggs, they got up around $5 a dozen or something. But if you guys ever buy like freeze dried stuff, which we do, I like, for example, I make pancake mix. We call it cabin cakes for the grandkids, and it's all made with freeze dried stuff so that we can take it camping or to the cabin or in the camper or whatever and make perfectly good homemade pancakes. And they're not like anything you can buy in the store, right? These are the real live, honest to God, from scratch homemade pancakes, but with completely freeze dried stuff. And so we would buy those ingredients, right? We buy the eggs, and you used to be able to buy a number 10 can of eggs for like $30. And then during that craziness, they were $170 for a can of freeze dried eggs. Well, thankfully, we'd already had enough, but I thought, you're out of your mind. Well, that's one of the things we do a lot of freeze drying for is eggs. We do it leftovers too, right? Any leftovers. Yeah, spaghetti, freeze dry. It lasts 30 years. Why not, right? So, but all right, Stephen. Hey, thanks for being here. Appreciate you watching the videos. We'll talk again soon. Can't wait to hear when you get that sawmill. But and I'm probably going to go here really soon anyway. But I still got 9 of you out there. So for those 9 that are still out there, drop questions down below if you got them while I'm here. As long as I'm here, you ask them, I'm willing to answer them. Still trying to get building ready where it's going to be housed. That I will say this: those are big, and we got the medium, so it might be the same as yours, unless you got the large. You said large, but oh, they have an extra large now, don't they? I think. But we got the medium, so that's 4 trays. And we ended up putting it in our garage. And the only trouble I have with it in the garage, I think, is because of air temperature differences. If you don't pull the seal off the front, it gets a lot of condensation in there, and then it can get some mold. So you got to clean it out and pull the seal off so that it can breathe. Um, but it works out there for us, and we've done tons of stuff. And I'll probably show some of that in future videos when I'm back doing remote stuff or cabin stuff, because it's awesome. I do have some cabin stuff I'm going to be doing, because I've got to get my cabin power and get my batteries in the back room, which is a super insulated, heated back room. But I've got to mill paneling for that room, and I actually did mill a bunch. I just have to finish making it now. And I think I'm going to leave it rough and just take the paneling that I already milled and put 45s on it the way Jason did over at Northwest Sawyer, slap it up on the wall and be done with it and get that room done. But I've got a bit of wiring to finish as well. So, hopefully I can get that done this summer. That's the plan, August, September timeframe, to get all that wiring done and get that room done. And I'll bring some of that to you guys too, for those that like to watch the cabin stuff. But all right, last question. I'll give you one more question. I still got 5 of you out there. I got one more question. Throw it out there. Ask it away. I'm not quite done. Check out my cool glasses if you haven't seen those. 20% off, by the way, in the spring store. So where these glasses are, 20% off. I make like $1.25 per glass. So if you buy one, it helps the channel out. But 20% off, I don't even think I'm going to make any money off that. So take advantage of it. But 12 by 12 block building with AC, just trying to get it all insulated up. Yeah, I have actually been told by others they've done that, where they've done like a building for the freeze dryer, the dehydrator, their canning stuff, all that kind of stuff. They put it all together, do it in one room. I think that's really smart. We've got a big house. We could do it in the house. But those freeze dryers are so big that you really got to have a place for them. So, all right. I told you about the 20% off. Wilco, I usually get around 6 sharpenings before a blade breaks. Used wood miser, cooks, and others can't see much difference. Yeah, I mean, I think wood misers are as good as anybody's out there, if not better. John at Davidson's All Natural Gym said he gets 11 sharpenings out of them. He's running an LT35 1.25 bands. I don't know how many because I don't sharpen my own. I send mine to Wood Miser, and I like their program because it costs me about $10 a band to send them off, and that's I mean, a band is $40 these days probably. I've got like, I don't know, about 85 bands. But the thing is I look at it as a business expense. I know a lot of guys like Kevin, he resharpens his own. But I look at it kind of more like maybe Jake Dean. Jake Dean set up to do it. That's Custom Sawyer down in Georgia. But I've heard from Joe Main that when Jake is milling all the time, he's not sharpening bands. He's too busy working, running his mill. And that's my philosophy. I'm too busy running my mill. I don't want to come home after a job I do, especially if I'm milling like 4 or 5 days in a row, and then have to sit there and resharpen all those bands and reset them and do it all myself so that I can go out on another job. For me, it's just way easier to box them up, ship them to Wood Miser, and they come back in a couple, 2-3 weeks, and away you go. My wife said I made enough noise and put off enough heat so that it's not allowed in the house. Well, bless her soul. But you know what? She's going to love those freeze-dried whatever you make with it. So, all right. Well, Will, good to see you. It's been a while. And for the other 4 of you out there besides Timothy and Will, I'm glad you were here. And I'm going to cut off for the night. So check out the channel community page for that rock that Daryl ran and milled up. And then if you're interested in the memberships, check those out. It's just something that'll help the channel out. And there's going to be a lot of insider stuff for those. And 20% off on the spring store. So check that out. And there's even a 15% deal going on the Spreadshirt store, which is all part of my shopping on the channel. I seriously, I make like $1 to $1.50 per item, but there's a sale going on, summer sale for those. So check those out. All right, you guys have a great day. Take it easy. We'll see you again not too distant future. And there'll be more videos coming out. Stay what? Oh, stay safe. Okay. Have a good one, guys. Talk to you later.